Hello, and welcome back to Galactic Blueprint's Astrology Business Synthesis Part 2. So I really wanted to make this video because I wanted to not only look back at how these placements in specific that I spent so much time working on and have played out in my business's life and chart. So I really wanted to get a practical look, which is also extremely Virgo, by the way, especially since Mercury retrograde is in Virgo in the first house of my business. It's kind of perfect. I really wanted to look back and get a sense of how things have changed. What have I done right? What can be done better in the future? And of course, this was my first electional astrology attempt for something really important. I had actually been doing it a lot since. If you're wanting somebody to help you out with something like this, to get a full reading, to help you create either a business or some long-lasting event like a marriage, to figure out a specific date for that, I'm always available for electional astrology readings on my website, and I'll link that in the show notes below. Now, I've taken a lot of notes, so bear with me. This is probably going to be a long one, but there's a lot of information that I would like to share about this looking back. So obviously, we're going to talk about the houses in order, but first I wanted to mention, if you're not familiar with astrology, no worries, because I want to introduce the concept of annual perfections. Now, annual perfections in astrology is an ancient Hellenistic technique that basically states that from birthday to birthday, there's going to be a focus on one specific area of life or one house. And it starts from the birth time, which, here is April 8th, 2022. So because we're at the birth time, we're going to start here. And then throughout that first year, so from April 8th, 2022 to 2023, it's going to be that first house, right? And so then that's how you kind of go around the circle. So I'm going to be talking about the first and so far the second house, because a few months have passed since the first birthday of Galactic Blueprint. I haven't really celebrated, but I think this is something that I'd want to do moving forward. To celebrate the little wins, I think it's important. Okay, so for the first house, the first year of life, we want to really focus on the life of the business, right? The brand, what it's like it being out in the wild, in the wilderness, or the wilderness of social media, how it's perceived by others. And I mentioned in the other video that the ascendant, especially Virgo, is a sign that is really focused inward. It's a very internal, directed sign. And what's really cool about that is I didn't notice until now, but a lot of the work that I've been doing over the past, year and a half has been very internal. It's almost like all of the work that I do has to go through me, through my system, through my nervous system, through my emotional body, my spiritual body. It really has to go through my person in order for it to thrive, or you know what I mean? It's almost like this chart is extremely connected to me in ways that I never even thought were possible. So I'll talk a little bit about how the connection is even stronger when I talk about the ruler, because the ruler Mercury is in the 8th house. And what's funny is that my 8th house is actually Virgo. So it's almost like the connection or the emphasis on the occult knowledge that has come in perfectly in the sense of going through me before it's actually expressed out into the world. So it gives me a lot of room to really think through things and not be posting, like unhinged videos, even though that's something that I feel like I kind of want to do, just really off the cuff ideas that I'd like to express and share. But I think it gives me a more analytical lens on how I want to portray the business in ways that I believe would be helpful in service to humanity. So that's for the ascendant, definitely using my body for the work, definitely thinking through things more rationally, spending more time. This was very different for me because my chart is predominantly air. So to have something grounding, to have an earth sign ground the chart was really something I was going for. So this is perfect in the ways it turned out. Now, because, like I said, the ruler is Mercury, we're going to really focus on Mercury. So last year, Mercury retrogrades were extremely significant for me. I actually was able to come up with a Mercury retrograde workbook, which was pretty popular. I kind of discontinued it because it ended up being a lot of work on my end, and wasn't really worth the effort. But if I find there's interest in the future, I'll definitely bring it back. But I thought that was really funny that the identity of the chart was so, or the business was so tied to Mercury retrogrades, because the first ruler tied to its identity is Mercury. So I thought that was really cool. I also got a lot of insights during Mercury retrograde, which was awesome. And according to ancient Hellenistic astrologers, sometimes Mercury can represent travel, right? And that's exactly what happened. Throughout the first year of the business, I was traveling nonstop. And I still have been, just maybe not to the extent that I was the first year. So those, just off the bat, are going to be very strong indications of sort of my intention, in a sense. Maybe not the way I intended them to play out, but they definitely played out in the ways that I thought would match the theme of the planets, which was cool. So, right, that was the first year. I want to make sure I don't get too carried away here because there's so much. Now, first year, lots of travel, lots of people getting to know my business, people really getting a sense of who I was. And like I said, because Virgo is slightly more internal, it was kind of hard for people to really get a sense of what it was about. Now, people knew that the whole business was in service to humanity. I think that message came out very clearly. But the specific intent of where I was taking it was kind of hidden. And that's because the ruler, the sun, are all in the 8th house, which is a hidden house. Now, that's something I wanted to really talk about today, because it really depends how the placements are going to shine, depending on what houses you're going to put them in. So there's going to be a lot of emphasis or outward expression of the 1st, the 7th, the 4th, and the 10th houses. So those are going to be viewed sort of in the actual world, whereas like anything from the 6th to the 8th to sometimes the 9th and the 2nd are kind of going to be slightly more hidden, slightly more private. So even though I had a sun exalted in Aries, I decided to keep it in the 8th because I wanted to bring light or shed light onto some areas that have been hidden for a long time and that I understand will take a while to become uncovered. So I was fully prepared to go through that process. But then again, because this was the first year of life, the brand maybe didn't come out fully in a ways that people really understood. It was almost like people getting used to the sense that it existed and they would see what was going to come through it in the future. But then as it went around the circle, then a lot of different concepts started coming up, which I thought was wild. Maybe I'll do another video to really just talk about that. Then second house, let's see. So since April 8th of 2023, we transferred over to the second house, which was finances, values, monies, basically, right? And here, it's only been a few months, but I've noticed that there has been an inflow of money, or an influx of money coming in very interesting and different ways, which I thought was cool. So I definitely have established a lot of important relationships. I think it hasn't taken me long to really meet some incredible people and connect with wonderful business owners and even clients. And that because of the ruler of the second house being Venus, which is in the 7th, right? So like I said, anything's going to be in the 7th is going to be highlighted for the year. So the relationships I've had so far, absolutely excellent, wonderful, met some really cool people, and actually really funny enough, I've met a lot of people who have Jupiter prominent in their chart, or Pisces prominent in their chart, or people who kind of live out that dreamy or beautifully etheric persona. So I thought that was wonderful. I thought it was so absolutely amazing that that was the case, because the relationships that I've built, especially this year, and when I say this year, I mean like from since April 2023, the people have had magical qualities, the people that I've met, and that's totally what I was going for. That's what has made my business so much fun to work in. And yeah, and I really wanted to give you an update on this Jupiter Neptune situation because the way it revealed itself was the fact that I'm starting to see a lot of information or people I know in my dreams. And I'm starting to dream about them, which goes hand in hand with my dream work, right? My work as a dream worker. And then also, I've had a lot of interactions where I've connected with people through the astral, which has been super different and new, but also really cool, like being able to connect telepathically to other people because, Pisces has that magical quality that it kind of rules over the etheric realm or the magical realm or whatever you want to call it. So I wanted to note that even though there has been a lot of confusion on, what my relationship has been with certain people or, where is this going? Is this, I had to really sit in the fact that it doesn't matter and that we're all connected ultimately. But it was really cool seeing how, Neptune played out in that sense of obscuring the nature of the relationships I was having with people, whether they're my clients or whether they're my mentees or whether they're my mentors or whether I'm working with them or the boundaries have been blurred around that, which is super Pisces and Neptune or Neptune and Pisces. But it's also been really beautiful because the energy that has emanated from the people I've been meeting has been just unmatched. So that's absolutely wonderful. I want to go back a little bit to the eighth house because I feel like there's just so much to say here. Now, because I was mentioning that my body has been taking a lot of, big loads of energy work, especially, with the earth, right? Because it's an earth sign, of course, more synchronicities. But also, I've been working more with the deceased ever since last year. Around April, maybe slightly before April, but that's funny because the dead live in the eighth house. I know that sounds funny, sorry, pun not intended. The eighth house represents the deceased, and I've been working with the deceased for a while. And to be honest, this has been quite difficult on my body. And this was not intentional. Like, I did not sign up to be a medium. I did not sign up to be a psychopomp. I did not sign up to help people cross over. This was not at all my intention when I started the business. But I guess because those are themes of the eighth house where the sun is, and where obviously the first year of life has been, it's really, and also the fact that this is my eighth house in my physical natal chart, it's really funny how all of this turned out to be a calling for me to work with the spirits of the dead. And so I thought that was absolutely insane. I could not have predicted this, even though I should have known. It was one of those things that was a bit of an oversight, I guess, at least in the amount of work that has come in through that, which is really funny. Another eighth house topic that came up was the fact that people sometimes would book my sessions and just not show up. So basically, I would get paid just to exist, which is cool because the eighth house sometimes represents other people's money. And so obviously I would love to be able to give them the service, but sometimes they just didn't want it, which is totally cool. So that's interesting because that goes hand in hand with the axis of the second house of, working to make money, whereas like the eighth is just kind of like managing other people's money. So I thought that was interesting. Oh, and then Chiron. So I talked a lot about Chiron in the other video, but I wanted to mention that Chiron here, though it represents the wounded healer, it also represents ancient wounds or childhood wounds, sometimes even past life wounds. And I think the fact that I'm helping people cross over is almost like helping them work through their wounds of being alive or transitioning from life to death. But also, Chiron has really shown up in my actual offerings. So my most recent offer has been a workshop using human design to help people get rid of their shame, which shame is a huge wound. So it's funny how Chiron has actually showed up in the actual in the identity of the business. So it's so funny how it's all playing out in this way. And then if you notice, I'm going to flip-flop around in terms of houses here. If you noticed in the last video, if you listen closely, there was an ambulance that passed by. And what's funny is that the sixth house, although represents work ethic, can sometimes represent hospitals. And I thought it was so funny because it was at the exact time that I was talking about the sixth house that I started hearing the ambulance. So just funny coincidence. I really wanted to focus on the sixth house because the sixth and the eighth are really the houses that are behind the scenes. So these are the houses that you don't see. These are the things that happen behind the scenes that you're not privy to. And so I want to shed some light on that to show you how intense my work ethic has had to be. I've had bursts of lots of creativity where I work for a long time, and I take long periods of rest. So that's been super helpful in terms of Saturn and Mars being there, helping me push forward and push through. Because as a manifestor, I should never push past my capacity because I need a lot of rest. And I'll talk more about that in the human design version of this synthesis. I think two more things I want to mention. The moon in Cancer in the 11th house has connected me with so many incredible people and large networks of people in the healing, health, and wellness community, which is wonderful, right? That's definitely something that's offered exposure for me. However, it's also shown up in ways where I've become the go-to for emotional support amongst my friends, which is wonderful. I love doing that. I love supporting people emotionally. However, I really need to be balancing that out with my energy levels. As I said, as a manifestor, I'm supposed to really honor my rest cycle. One of the last observations is the midheaven in Gemini. So remember how I said the midheaven or the career point is very closely tied in with my personality, my Gemini sun? Well, what I've noticed is that the business seems to thrive when I'm present, right? Whenever I post a video of me, that has seemed to get more attention because the 10th house is associated with reputation, with visibility, with being seen, with being public. That's definitely something that I've noticed, that whenever I post something that's not really in line with my personality or where I'm not seen as my person, it doesn't seem to get as much attention, which I think is an interesting observation as well. And then the movement into the ninth, this has been very fascinating. I think because Jupiter, which is in the seventh, has been transiting my ninth, there's been a lot of learning here, but also the movement into teaching. So before last year, I was very interested in absorbing information, just constantly falling down rabbit holes, learning, seeking. Whereas now I feel like ever since Jupiter has been in my ninth house, I've actually been really committed to actually teaching and creating courses and creating content. So I find that to be quite fascinating as well. Now, I think what's going to happen, maybe if we want to throw in a prediction here, with Pluto moving into my sixth house in January, I predict that I'm going to be utilizing automations through my work because I have a hard time with consistency. Well, I'm not supposed to be consistent technically. So I believe that whether it's ChatGPT or any sort of technology is going to help me with my work ethic, which is going to be really cool. I'm excited for that. But also I'm excited to see the transformation of my work ethic in order to honor my health and honor my body. And I think that's it. I already talked so much. I feel like that's a lot already, a lot to chew on. Let me know if you want me to do another one, you want me to expand on something specific, feel free to comment. And if you want to book any of my sessions, I'm available at galacticblueprint.io. And you have a wonderful day. Thank you for being here.